My name is Sloane Mercer. I'm 29 and I work as an interior designer in Raleigh, North Carolina. People think design is all about colors and fabrics, but the truth is, it's about structure. And right now, the structure of my life feels like it's cracking. Before I dive in, if you've ever had family push you past your limits, please hit like, subscribe, and share this story. You might see parts of yourself in me, and maybe my journey can help someone else out there. It was a Monday morning when the envelope arrived. Sunlight filtered through the blinds of my small Glenwood Avenue apartment, painting thin gold stripes across the kitchen table where a pile of unopened mail had been waiting all weekend. I sat down with my mug of coffee, ready for a quick skim before logging on for work. Bills, circulars, a credit card promotion, and then an envelope on thick cream paper with a name that didn't belong in my mailbox. Magnolia Estates, the most exclusive wedding venue in Raleigh. My chest tightened. I had never set foot in Magnolia, let alone asked them to write to me. With a fingertip, I slit the flap open. A packet slid out, the logo embossed in silver at the top. I didn't notice my coffee cooling beside me. My eyes locked on the words in the center of the first page. Wedding Services Agreement. Total, $78,000. And at the very bottom, neatly scrawled in blue ink, Sloane Mercer. My name, my signature. Only it wasn't. The loops were too round, the slant too exaggerated. Someone had studied me carefully, copied me like a child tracing lines through thin paper. I froze, hand hovering above the page, as if touching it might somehow make it real. The mug slipped. It shattered on the hardwood floor with a crack that made me flinch. Coffee splashed over my bare feet, searing, but I barely felt it. My world had tilted on its axis. I whispered into the empty room, "No, this can't be happening." But it was. Every line screamed of my sister, Chloe, the way she looped her letters, the little curl at the end of every Y. My heart slammed against my ribs. Hands trembling, I reached for my phone and dialed the number printed at the top. It rang twice before a woman answered, bright and cheerful. "Magnolia Estates, this is Stephanie. How may I help you?" My voice came out thin, higher than normal. "This is Sloane Mercer. I'm calling about a wedding contract for Chloe Mercer." "Oh, Miss Mercer," she gushed. "Yes, we're thrilled about your sister's celebration. Everyone here has been talking about your generosity. It's rare we see a sibling cover such a beautiful event." Generosity. The word stung. My throat closed, but I forced out, "Could you email me a full copy of the file, with signatures and all supporting documents?" "Of course, I'll note that. But don't worry, the next payment isn't due until—" I never signed it. My tone cut sharper than I intended. "The signature was forged. I want everything you have on record sent to me immediately." There was a pause, her cheer draining into confusion. Yes, ma'am. I'll escalate this to management right away. Do not call my parents, do not call my sister. Contact me directly." I hung up before she could argue. The phone buzzed immediately with a different notification. My stomach dropped. Credit alert. New hard inquiry. Magnolia Estates Finance. Score change, 52. In seconds, years of careful payments and sacrifice had been undercut. 52 points gone, my professional credibility wobbling. Many clients checked credit before entrusting large budgets to a designer. If word spread, I could lose projects, maybe even my job. I gripped the counter, nails digging into the laminate, and tried to breathe. Buzz, a text message from Chloe. "Just toured the bridal suite. Absolutely stunning. Thinking we should upgrade the flowers too. It's only a little more. Ethan loves it. Can you approve by tomorrow?" A photo followed. Chloe in a silk robe, champagne in hand, posing in the mirrored suite like she owned the world. Her fiancé wasn't even in the picture. I couldn't answer. My hands were shaking too hard. Another buzz. This time Mom. "Sloane, honey, did you see Chloe's note about the flowers? The Hendersons already asked which package you picked. Everyone is saying how generous you are. Don't let us down." Her words cut deeper than any blade. "Don't let us down." As if I hadn't carried their weight for years. I pressed the back of my hand against my forehead, trying to steady the spinning room. Images surfaced. Me at 16, pulling double shifts at the ice cream stand while Chloe lounged by the pool. Me wiring money from my graduation gifts so she could take a spring break trip to Cancun. Mom's voice reminding me, "You're the responsible one. Family comes first." The past crashed into the present with brutal clarity. I crouched down, gathering shards of the broken mug with shaking fingers, dropping them into the trash. Each piece felt like a fragment of the trust that had just shattered inside me. This wasn't just pressure. This wasn't guilt or obligation. This was fraud. My phone vibrated again, this time a voicemail from Magnolia's finance office, polite but firm, confirming the new line of credit I had supposedly opened. That was it. The line I never thought I'd cross, realizing my family wasn't just leaning on me. They were stealing from me. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, grabbed my laptop, and created a new folder labeled Evidence. One by one, I scanned the contract, screenshotted texts, forwarded the credit alert. Then I opened a fresh document. At the top, I typed 4 words that burned like fire. I did not sign. Leaning back in the chair, I stared out the window at the morning traffic crawling along Glenwood Avenue. People in cars, heading to offices, to schools, to lives that probably didn't include forged signatures and stolen futures. I whispered, voice steadier this time, "This ends here." And for the first time that morning, I believed it. The folder marked Evidence glowed on my laptop screen, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I knew this contract wasn't a one-time mistake. It was part of a pattern, one I had let repeat for far too long. I shut my eyes, and memories lined up like old receipts I never threw away. I was 16 again, sticky with chocolate syrup behind the counter of Sweet Treats Creamery on Hillsborough Street. The summer sun blazed outside where Chloe lounged at the pool with her friends, while I scooped Rocky Road for restless kids. The manager leaned out of the back room, smirking. "Another double shift, Mercer? You sure you can handle it?" "Yeah," I'd said, plastering on a smile, because every extra dollar I earned was earmarked for Chloe's spring break trip to Florida. She had come to me days earlier, batting her eyes, her voice dripping with entitlement. "Please, Sloane, everyone's going. Mom said you'd help. Don't make me the only one stuck at home." So I worked, and when I handed over my crumpled cash, she squealed, kissed my cheek for exactly 3 seconds, and sprinted off to brag to her friends. I never saw a cent of that money again. A sharp knock pulled me back to the present. My neighbor, Mrs. Collins, called through the door. "Everything okay in there? I thought I heard glass break." I cracked it open and forced a smile. "Just a mug, Mrs. Collins. I'm fine." She tilted her head, not quite convinced, but let it go and shuffled back down the hall. When the latch clicked shut, I sagged against the door. Amazing how easy it was to lie to strangers while suffocating under the truth with my own family. My fingers hovered above the keyboard again, and another memory surfaced. Graduation day. I was 18, cap crooked, cheeks aching from smiling as Grandma pressed an envelope into my hand. "For your future, sweetheart. Don't let anyone tell you how to spend it." It was $2,200, her savings, scraped together just for me. 2 weeks later, it was gone. Mom's tone had been syrupy, rehearsed. "It's just a short-term loan, honey. Your dad had a business expense. We'll give it back." They never did. When I asked months later, she sighed like I'd failed her. "Family shares, Sloane. Don't be selfish." I remember sitting in my dorm room staring at my empty wallet, wondering if I had imagined that envelope altogether. Now, back in my Raleigh apartment, I pulled up my bank app. The list of transactions blurred together, years of temporary loans and helping hands that somehow always went one way. I opened a spreadsheet and started logging them. 2013, Chloe's Cancun trip, $600. 2015, Grandma's gift borrowed, $1,200. 2016, Christmas shopping charge, $1,380. 2018, Dad's small investment, $5,000. And that was only the beginning. Nearly a decade of smaller withdrawals, dozens of just this once requests, credit cards swiped without asking, interest piling up. At the bottom, the total glared back at me. $43,912. And now, Chloe had forged my name for another $78,000. My phone buzzed. Dad. "Hey, Pumpkin," he said, voice warm but heavy with authority. "Chloe says you're giving her trouble about the wedding. What's this I hear?" Trouble? My laugh was bitter. "Dad, she forged my signature. There's a contract in my name for 78 grand. Silence stretched. Then his familiar sigh. "Don't exaggerate. You've always been the responsible one. You can afford it now. You've got that career, that promotion. Your sister deserves a proper day." My grip tightened on the phone. "I never agreed to this. It's fraud." His tone snapped sharper. "Don't throw words like that around. This is family, not court. Remember when your mother and I covered your car insurance in college? We didn't call it fraud. We called it love." My stomach churned. They had covered it after draining my savings first. I swallowed hard. "You've taken enough from me." Then I hung up. The ache in my chest was unbearable, but no tears came. I clicked open another email chain between Mom and Chloe. "She'll cave. She always does," Mom had typed. "And if not, we'll figure something out. She's got the credit," Chloe had replied. The words pulsed like poison. They hadn't just hoped for my help. They had strategized my exploitation. I shoved the chair back, pacing the length of my apartment. Hazel, my cat, blinked at me from the couch, tail flicking lazily. "At least you don't expect me to pay for a wedding," I muttered, scratching her head. She leaned into my hand, a tiny reminder of unconditional love. The clock blinked past noon. My untouched coffee sat cold in the sink, my stomach hollow. I typed one last entry. 2024, Magnolia Estates forgery, $78,000. The total leapt to $121,912. Seeing the figure spelled out nearly knocked the wind from me. More than $100,000 siphoned from my life, disguised as loyalty, twisted into obligation. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Hazel purred on my lap, grounding me as I whispered into the dark. How much more would they have taken if I hadn't caught this? I'd told myself for years the debts were temporary, that love would balance the scales. But staring at the glowing screen, I finally admitted what I'd never dared say aloud. They never intended to repay me. Not a dime. I snapped the laptop shut, pressing my palms against the cool metal. Tomorrow, I would have to decide. Either let them bleed me dry, or draw a line I would never let them cross. And for the first time in years, the idea of saying no didn't scare me. It exhilarated me. The past wasn't just resurfacing tonight. It was demanding I decide who I would be tomorrow. The spreadsheet still glowed in my mind long after I shut the laptop. $121,900. Numbers I couldn't unsee. For years, I'd excused them as temporary favors, family obligations, helping out. Tonight, I couldn't pretend anymore. I stood in the middle of my apartment, arms wrapped tight around myself, the silence pressing in. Hazel leapt down from the couch and rubbed against my leg, her purr vibrating like a question. What now? What now? The phone lit up with another message from Mom. "Sloane, Magnolia needs a decision on the lighting package by 3 p.m. tomorrow. Don't make us look cheap." I laughed out loud, sharp and humorless. The audacity. Not even a please, not even a hint of acknowledgement for what they'd already taken. Just another command, like my time and money were theirs to schedule. My laugh turned into a sob that caught in my throat. I pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes until sparks danced in the dark. When I dropped them, my reflection stared back from the blackened kitchen window. Same brown eyes, same tired circles beneath them, but something new, too. A hard edge I'd never seen before. I grabbed a pen and sticky notes from the counter. If they wanted a ledger, I'd give them one. I scrawled the debts across each square and slapped them on the wall in a crooked timeline. 2013, Cancun. 2015, Grandma's Gift. 2016, Christmas card scam. 2018, Dad's Investment. 2024, Magnolia Estates forgery. One by one, the sticky notes climbed higher until my wall looked like a crime board. each square proof that I'd been an accomplice in my own undoing. I stepped back, chest heaving, and whispered, "You let this happen." The guilt slammed into me, but then, just as quickly, so did something else. Rage. Not wild, frantic rage. Controlled, simmering, the kind that builds pressure until metal bends. The phone buzzed again. This time it was Dad calling. I hit decline. Another buzz. Mom, decline, Chloe, decline. The screen filled with their names like a slot machine rigged against me. I switched it to silent and tossed it onto the couch. For once, they could scream into the void without me answering. Hazel meowed, jumping up onto the table. She pawed at a sticky note, crumpling the corner. I stroked her head, steadying my breath. "You're right," I murmured. "It's time." A knock at the door startled me. For a second I thought they'd come here, but when I peeked through the peephole, it was just the delivery guy dropping off a neighbor's order. Relief and adrenaline crashed together in my chest. Was this what fear of your own family felt like? I slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to my chest. "Enough," I whispered. "Enough." And for the first time, the word didn't sound like a plea. It sounded like a decision. I picked up my phone again, but this time I didn't open their messages. Instead, I scrolled to Jordan Hayes. My thumb hovered only a second before I pressed call. He answered on the second ring, his voice groggy but steady. "Sloane, what's wrong?" I exhaled shakily. "They forged my signature, Jordan. $78,000. And when I confronted Dad, he told me not to call it fraud. He called it love." There was silence on the line, then his voice, calm and firm. "That's not love. That's exploitation. And you know it." The words hit me like cool water. Permission I didn't know I needed. What if I just stopped? My voice was barely a whisper. What if I refused to play along this time? "Then you'd finally be free," he said. After we hung up, I stared again at the sticky notes. My past stared back. 16-year-old me, 18-year-old me, 25-year-old me, all of them had swallowed their pride for family. But the woman standing here tonight wasn't a teenager desperate for approval. She was 29, with a career, with proof, with choices. I peeled the last sticky note, 2024, Magnolia Estates forgery, and slapped it onto the fridge where I'd see it every morning. Not a reminder of weakness, but of the line I would never let them cross again. In the dark glass of the window, my reflection looked back at me. Not just tired, not just scared, fierce, awake. "This ends now," I said out loud. My voice didn't tremble. And for once, I believed myself. When I woke the next morning, the sticky note on my fridge was the first thing I saw. 2024, Magnolia Estates forgery. A reminder of the line I couldn't let them erase. I made coffee, stronger than usual, and stared at the wall of debts taped above my desk. The sight didn't paralyze me the way it had last night. Instead, it fueled me. I needed to be ready, not just to say no, but to prove it, with evidence no one could spin into selfishness or misunderstanding. By mid-morning, I called Jordan Hayes, my old college friend who had become a civil lawyer downtown. He picked up on the second ring, his voice calm but alert. "Sloane, I've been waiting for your call. Did you sleep at all?" "Barely," I admitted, pacing the length of my living room. "I need help, not just advice. I need this to stick." "You've got the contract?" "I scanned it last night. You can see Chloe's handwriting. She tried to mimic mine, but the loops are all wrong, and the venue already hit my credit." Jordan's tone hardened. "Then we've got them. Start pulling everything. Emails, text threads, call logs. We'll need timestamps, screenshots, originals if you've got them." "I've been keeping records," I said, glancing at the growing folder labeled Evidence on my desktop. "But I'll organize it, make it impossible for them to deny." "Good. Don't delete anything, even the casual messages. A judge doesn't just want proof of the forgery, they want a pattern. And from what you've told me, there's a long one." I let out a shaky laugh. Pattern is an understatement. After we hung up, I spent hours combing through years of digital dust. My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up old Gmail threads where Mom pressured me, Chloe guilt-tripped me, Dad rationalized every withdrawal. I labeled each file, 2015, Grandma's gift stolen, 2018, Dad's investment, bank transfer, 2022, Christmas credit card charges, 2023, Chloe texting about just one more loan. The folder swelled until my laptop fan whirred like it was sweating with me. Hazel curled on the couch, tail flicking, watching me like she knew I was rebuilding my life line by line. At lunch, I ducked out to meet Samantha Lee, my coworker, and the only person at the firm I halfway trusted with the truth. We met at a cafe near the design office. "You look like you've been up all night," she said, pushing a latte across the table. "I have," I admitted, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. "My family forged my name on a $78,000 wedding contract." Her jaw dropped. "You're kidding." "I wish." I showed her a screenshot of the contract. She read in silence, her brow tightening. "Sloane, this isn't family drama. This is criminal." I nodded. "Jordan's helping. I'm gathering everything, but I think I'm done hiding. If they want to make me the villain, fine. I'll show them the evidence in front of everyone." Samantha leaned forward, eyes steady. "If you're serious, you can't just drop hints. You have to burn the whole facade down." Her words hit me harder than the caffeine. Burn it down. The thought scared me, but it also thrilled me. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with stacks of paper spread like a battlefield. Bank statements, credit reports, screenshots printed and highlighted. I pressed record on my phone and spoke into it, narrating each piece like an evidence log. Exhibit A, contract from Magnolia Estates with forged signature. Exhibit B, text from Mom pressuring me to approve more charges. Exhibit C, email thread from 2015, proof of financial manipulation. Hearing my own voice, firm and clinical, was strangely empowering. For years I'd let them narrate my life, twisting me into the selfless daughter. Now I was telling the story, and the truth sounded damning. Near midnight, Jordan texted, "Court filings can wait, but you'll need to confront them soon. They won't back down until you force the issue. Choose your moment." I stared at his words. Choose your moment. My family loved spectacle. Sunday dinners, wedding planning events, public performances of unity. If I exposed them there, they couldn't twist the story behind closed doors. Everyone would see. The idea terrified me, but it also felt inevitable. I looked at the sticky note on the fridge one last time before bed. The line had been crossed, yes, but now I was the one holding the chalk. By the time Sunday rolled around, my folder of evidence was thick enough to choke a paper shredder. Jordan had helped me arrange it into categories. Contracts, texts, emails, credit reports. Each page had a tab, each screenshot had a timestamp. I wasn't walking into another family ambush empty-handed. This time, I'd bring the receipts. Literally. The battleground was set. A cake tasting at Magnolia Estates. Chloe insisted on having the whole family there, plus Ethan's parents, the Hendersons. A grand production, like always. Perfect, I thought grimly. If my family wanted an audience, I'd give them one. When I walked into the ballroom, the scent of buttercream hit me first. Rows of elaborate cakes displayed like jewelry. Chloe glowed in a blush-pink dress, already posing for photos beside a tower of frosted tears. Mom hovered near her, planner in hand, while Dad chatted up the Hendersons with his usual booming laugh. I gripped the leather folder under my arm. My stomach knotted, but my steps didn't falter. Hazel's fur was still on my sweater, a tiny reminder from that morning that I wasn't alone. Chloe spotted me and squealed, loud enough for heads to turn. "Sloane, finally! We were just about to start. You'll love the raspberry layer. It's divine." I forced a smile. "Let's get on with it." We gathered around a long table draped in white linen. Plates clinked, forks poised. I didn't touch a crumb. My eyes were on the people, not the cakes. Dad raised his glass of champagne. "To Chloe and Ethan, and to Sloane, for making all this possible." There it was, the opening. My pulse pounded in my ears, but I stood before anyone could toast. I need to correct that, I said, my voice carrying across the room. Forks froze mid-air. I'm not the one making this possible, and I never agreed to pay for any of it. A ripple of confusion swept through the table. Chloe's smile faltered. What are you talking about? Of course you— I slapped the folder onto the table. The sound cracked like a gavel. This, I said, pulling out the contract, is a forgery. My name, my signature, copied by my sister without my consent. $78,000 tied to my credit. That's fraud. Gasps rippled. Ethan's mother leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Is this true? Chloe's face flushed crimson. She reached for the paper, but I slid it out of reach. Don't. My voice was steel. Mom recovered first, her voice syrupy. Sloane, honey, this isn't the place. This is exactly the place, I cut in. Because for years you've kept this behind closed doors. Loans, credit cards, stolen graduation money, all buried under guilt trips. I have the records. Every dime. $43,000 over the years. Add this contract, and we're talking over $100,000 stolen from me. The room went dead quiet. Even the servers froze. Dad cleared his throat, face darkening. Family takes care of family. You're twisting this. No, I said, pulling out highlighted emails. My hands shook, but my voice held steady. Here's Mom writing, she'll give in, she always does. Here's Chloe replying, she's got the credit. That's not family, that's collusion. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his hand slipping from Chloe's. His father's face turned stone hard. Chloe, is this true? Chloe's voice cracked, then sharpened. I did it for us, for our day. Sloane has the money. She always has the money. Why shouldn't she help? Because it's theft, I snapped. The word echoed off the marble walls. Chloe shot up from her chair screeching backward. You're just jealous. You don't have a fiancé. You don't have a life. This was the least you could do for me. My chest burned, but I didn't flinch. What I don't have is any obligation to fund your fantasies. You forged my signature, Chloe. That's a crime. And you dragged Mom and Dad into it. Mom rushed to Chloe's side, wrapping an arm around her. She only wanted a wedding worthy of our family name. Sloane, don't ruin this with your bitterness. I lifted the folder higher. This isn't bitterness, this is evidence. And I've already shared it with my lawyer. The color drained from Dad's face. Ethan's mother slammed her fork onto the table. I won't have my son tied to fraud. Ethan, we're going to discuss this later. Chloe spun toward me, eyes blazing, tears streaking her mascara. You'll pay for this, Sloane. You've always been the selfish one. I let out a breath that felt like years of weight leaving my lungs. No, Chloe. I've always been the responsible one. And today, I finally stopped confusing responsibility with servitude. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of the air conditioner. Then Dad exploded, pounding the table. Enough! You will not humiliate this family in front of outsiders. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you humiliated me in private, I shot back. The words hung between us, raw and final. Ethan's father stood, placing a hand on his wife's shoulder. If these documents are real, then this wedding is over until debts are settled. I won't see my family entangled in this mess. Chloe let out a strangled cry, lunging across the table. For a second, I thought she'd strike me, but Dad grabbed her arm. She shrieked anyway, a sound that sliced the air. You've ruined everything. I met her eyes, steady. No, Chloe. I've just stopped letting you ruin me. The room dissolved into chaos. Mom sobbing, Dad hissing threats under his breath, Chloe clinging to Ethan, who looked like he'd rather vanish through the floor. The Hendersons gathered their things, muttering about lawyers and annulments. I gathered my papers calmly, sliding them back into the folder. My hands no longer shook. Before I turned to leave, I looked back at the wreckage, cakes untouched, relatives pale, Chloe wailing into Mom's shoulder. You wanted a show, I said quietly. Now you've got one. Then I walked out, the ballroom doors slamming shut behind me. Out in the parking lot, the spring air hit me like a baptism. My knees wobbled, but a strange exhilaration surged through me. For the first time in my life, I had spoken the truth in front of everyone who needed to hear it. And though the fallout would be brutal, I felt lighter than I had in years. The ballroom doors shut behind me, muffling Chloe's shrieks, Mom's sobs, and Dad's threats into a dull roar. I should have been shaking, but instead a strange stillness spread through me. My hands were steady on the folder. My heart, though fast, felt strong. For once, I wasn't running away. I walked across the parking lot, heels clicking against the pavement. A young valet stepped aside, wide-eyed, phone clutched in his hand. I caught the glow of a camera app before he quickly tucked it away. My stomach twisted. Of course, someone had filmed everything. By the time I reached my car, I already knew. This wouldn't stay in that room. The next morning proved me right. I woke to my phone buzzing non-stop on the nightstand. Notifications stacked like falling bricks, missed calls, texts, tags on social media. I rubbed my eyes and opened Instagram. The video was everywhere. Chloe screaming at me slamming the contract down, Ethan's mother declaring the wedding over until debts are settled. Someone had uploaded it under the caption, "When family drama explodes at Magnolia Estates." 300,000 views overnight. I scrolled through the comments, my throat tightening. Good for her, finally standing up for herself. Yikes, imagine forging your sister's signature for $78K. That bride is a walking red flag. Mixed in were harsher ones, clearly from my family's circle. Ungrateful brat, who humiliates their sister like that? She's bitter because she's single. If I were her parents, I'd disown her too. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to keep reading. This was the narrative war I had walked into. By noon, my phone lit with Mom's name. Against my better judgment, I answered. "How could you?" she hissed, her voice raw. "Your father hasn't slept. Chloe hasn't stopped crying. Do you know what people are saying about us?" "I know exactly what they're saying," I replied evenly. "And none of it would have been said if you hadn't stolen from me." "You're twisting this," she snapped. "We raised you better than this, airing dirty laundry in public like some what?" My voice cracked sharp. "Like someone finally telling the truth?" She inhaled sharply, then dropped her tone into the one I knew too well, the disappointed whisper that used to undo me. "You've broken this family, Sloane. For what? A little money?" "It's not a little money," I said, voice shaking now from anger, not fear. "It's my future, my credit, my career, and you were all willing to ruin me for Chloe's party." I hung up before she could answer. By evening, Dad had joined the campaign. His Facebook post appeared in my feed because Aunt Meredith tagged me in a comment. "Heartbroken when children forget where they come from. After everything we've sacrificed, Sloane has chosen selfishness and greed." The comments beneath were a battleground. Cousin Jennifer. "Wait, I thought Chloe's wedding was supposed to be small. Who's paying for all this?" Old college roommate Lisa. "I know Sloane. She's the most responsible person I've ever met. There's more to this story." A random stranger. "Looks like the truth came out on video." The cracks in their narrative widened. Still, the attacks came harder. That night, my phone pinged with an email from HR at my design firm. "Sloane, your parents called the office today, claiming you have serious financial instability. We assured them that your employment is not their business, but we wanted to make you aware." I dropped the phone onto the couch, my stomach lurching. They weren't just smearing me online, they were trying to poison my livelihood. I called Jordan, pacing the apartment until Hazel darted under the table. "They called my office," I said, voice trembling with rage. "They're trying to wreck my career now." Jordan's sigh was steady, grounding. "Then it's time to escalate. They've crossed every line. We file for identity theft formally. Once the venue confirms the forgery, the law will back you." My knees buckled, but I caught the counter edge. "Do you think I can actually win?" "Sloane," he said, firm, "you've already won the moral battle. Now it's about the legal one. Gather your strength. They're cornered, and cornered people lash out." He was right. The lash-outs came in waves. Chloe flooded my phone with texts, each one more desperate and vicious than the last. "Answer me, you witch. Ethan's parents are furious. Fix this, or I swear you'll regret it." You owe me this wedding after everything I've done for you. I stared at the last one until my vision blurred. Everything she's done for me? I laughed bitterly. What exactly was that? Take my money, my credit, my peace of mind. I saved every message into the evidence folder. The next day at work, Samantha cornered me in the break room. You okay? She asked softly. I hesitated, then pulled out my phone. Define okay. I showed her the viral video, the endless notifications, the hate flooding my inbox. Her eyes darkened. They're trying to make you the villain. I nodded. And they're good at it. They've had years of practice. She put a hand on my shoulder. Then don't fight them alone. You've got allies, Sloane. Me, Jordan, even strangers who saw the video and believe you. Lean on us. Her words lodged deep. For so long, I'd carried this weight alone. Maybe it was time to let people help. That night, I opened my laptop to another storm. A local news blog had picked up the video. Magnolia Estates wedding meltdown. Sister exposes forged $78K contract. The article was brutal, quoting unnamed family friends calling me cold and ungrateful. But it also quoted viewers praising my courage. The public battle lines were drawn, and I was at the center whether I wanted to be or not. I shut the laptop and leaned back, exhaustion pressing down. Hazel curled into my lap, her steady purr grounding me. This is bigger than me now, I whispered to her. They wanted a perfect wedding. Instead, they created a public scandal, and I'm done cleaning up their messes. I stroked her fur, eyes burning. The smear campaign was fierce, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one on defense. I had evidence, allies, and a voice I finally trusted. The dominoes were falling, one after another, and soon the final piece would crash in court. By the time the summons arrived, I was no longer surprised. Jordan had warned me it was only a matter of weeks once we filed the complaint. The document was crisp, official, heavy with words like forgery, identity theft, damages exceeding $100,000. Chloe's name was listed as defendant. My parents were cited as co-conspirators. I read it 3 times at my kitchen table. Hazel stretched across my lap, purring like nothing was unusual. But my stomach churned. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. It was a case in the Superior Court of Wake County. The courthouse on Fayetteville Street looked colder than I remembered from jury duty years ago. Pale stone columns, security lines, a metal detector humming as I stepped through. Jordan walked beside me, his tie perfectly straight, his expression calm. "You ready?" he asked. "No," I admitted, "but I don't think I ever will be." He smiled faintly. "That's okay. The evidence speaks louder than nerves." Inside, the courtroom smelled faintly of old wood polish and tension. Chloe sat at the defendant's table, her hair too perfectly curled, her pink suit screaming innocence. Mom was beside her, clutching tissues like a prop. Dad sat stiff, jaw set, glaring at me like I'd betrayed the family rather than exposed a crime. When our eyes met, Chloe's lips curved into a smirk. She thinks she'll win, I realized, cold washing over me. The bailiff called us to order. Judge Reynolds, a woman in her 50s with sharp glasses and sharper eyes, presided from the bench. Jordan began with precision. He laid out the timeline, my sister forging my signature on a $78,000 contract with Magnolia Estates, the venue contacting my credit, the years of prior loans, and unreturned money that formed a pattern of exploitation. "Exhibit A," he said, holding up the contract. My forged name stared back at me. The loops, the tilt, Chloe's sloppy mimicry. The venue manager, Stephanie, was called to testify. She looked nervous but resolute. "We believed the contract was valid," she said. "We dealt directly with Ms. Chloe Mercer and her parents, but the credit authorization was under Ms. Sloane Mercer's name. When Ms. Mercer contacted us, we realized the discrepancies." Jordan guided her gently. "Did Ms. Sloane Mercer ever appear at your office, sign documents, or give verbal consent to charges?" "No," Stephanie said firmly. "Never." Chloe's lawyer tried to spin it. Isn't it possible my client signed her sister's name simply as a placeholder, with every intention of clarifying later? Stephanie shook her head. We don't process contracts that way. This was presented as binding. Judge Reynolds scribbled notes. My heart thudded. Then came my turn on the stand. I swore in, palms clammy, and sat facing the courtroom. Chloe's eyes burned holes in me, but I refused to look away from the judge. Jordan asked softly, Sloane, can you explain the impact this forged contract has had on your life? I swallowed. It tanked my credit score. I almost lost clients when the inquiry showed up. It jeopardized my ability to rent a new apartment. And it wasn't just this one incident. For years, my family has treated me like a bank account. I've documented over $43,000 in loans, none of which were repaid. This contract pushed me past my breaking point. He slid a binder across the table. Is this your evidence log? Yes, I said, flipping to highlighted texts. Here's my mother saying, she'll give in, she always does, and Chloe replying, she's got the credit. They weren't planning to ask me. They were planning to take it no matter what. Murmurs filled the room. Judge Reynolds raised a hand for silence. Chloe's attorney rose, sharp as a blade. Ms. Mercer, isn't it true that your parents once helped you pay car insurance in college? Yes, I said steadily, after they'd already drained my savings account for Dad's business investment. Isn't it true you sometimes sent money willingly? Yes, I admitted, because I was manipulated into thinking that saying no made me a bad daughter. But willing is not the same as free. Forgery is not a favor. It's a crime. For the first time, my voice didn't shake in court. It rang clear. Then Chloe was called. She walked to the stand, clutching tissues, tears already glistening. She played her part well. I just wanted a beautiful day, she sniffled. My sister's always been the successful one, the one with the good job. I thought she'd help, like she always has. Maybe I shouldn't have signed her name, but it wasn't malicious. It was desperation. Her lawyer guided her. You love your sister, don't you? Of course, Chloe whispered. I never meant to hurt her. Mom dabbed her eyes dramatically. Dad's jaw tightened in righteous indignation. For a moment, the sympathy in the room tilted their way. But Jordan rose again, calm as steel. Chloe, can you explain this? He projected a text message on the courtroom screen. Chloe's voice, recorded, laughing. I signed Sloane's name as a favor, to push things along. She'll pay eventually. Gasps filled the room. Chloe's face blanched. That doesn't sound like desperation, Jordan said coolly. It sounds like entitlement. Chloe stammered. I didn't mean... No further questions, Jordan said. The Hendersons had been subpoenaed as witnesses. Ethan's father, red-faced, took the stand. My son's engagement is in shambles because of this deception, he barked. We were told Sloane was generously footing the bill. We find out it was all a fraud? I won't have my family tied to that mess. His testimony landed like a hammer. Even the jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. After closing arguments, silence filled the room while Judge Reynolds reviewed the evidence. My pulse thundered. Hazel's soft purr seemed to echo in my memory. Finally, the judge looked up. This court finds sufficient evidence that Ms. Chloe Mercer knowingly forged her sister's signature, committing fraud and identity theft. The financial damages are substantiated. Judgment is entered in favor of the plaintiff, Ms. Sloane Mercer. My breath caught. Chloe gasped, tears spilling. Mom whispered frantically in her ear. Dad muttered curses under his breath, but the judge wasn't finished. Restitution is ordered in the amount of $78,000 to cover the fraudulent contract, plus damages of $20,000 for credit harm. This court further warns the defendants that continued harassment may result in additional legal consequences. The gavel cracked. The room erupted. Mom wailing, Chloe sobbing, Dad shouting about betrayal. But I sat frozen, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. Not of fear this time, but of relief. Jordan squeezed my shoulder. You did it. I nodded, voice hoarse. We did it. Outside, reporters swarmed the courthouse steps. Microphones thrust forward, questions shouted. Sloane, how does it feel to win against your own sister? Do you think the family can reconcile? I paused on the steps, folder clutched to my chest. Cameras flashed. It feels like freedom, I said simply, and reconciliation isn't possible without accountability. Today was accountability. I walked down the steps, the spring air filling my lungs, each breath lighter than the last. That night, back in my apartment, I lit a candle and sat on the couch with Hazel curled against me. My phone buzzed endlessly with notifications, but I let it sit on the counter. For once, the silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. The law had spoken, and so had I. The court order was barely a week old when the wedding collapsed like a house of cards. I didn't even have to lift a finger. The damage unraveled on its own. It started with an email forwarded by a sympathetic cousin. Dear guests, due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding of Chloe Mercer and Ethan Henderson has been postponed indefinitely. Postponed was a polite word for canceled. Everyone knew it. At first, Chloe tried to salvage the dream. She posted filtered selfies on Instagram with captions like, "Love conquers all," and "We'll celebrate soon, bigger and better." But the comments betrayed the truth. Is this about the court case? Girl, no one's paying for that circus anymore. Ethan's family deserves better. 2 days later, Ethan deleted every photo of Chloe from his feed. Then his mother posted a cryptic message about protecting our son from deceit. The engagement was over, publicly. I heard about the next blow from Aunt Meredith, who called whispering like she was trading state secrets. Your parents had to put the house on the market, she said. Between the restitution order and the deposits they can't get back, they're drowning. The mortgage, the legal fees, Sloane, they may lose everything. I leaned against the kitchen counter, stunned but not surprised. They should have thought of that before stealing from me. They're telling everyone you forced them into this, she murmured. I let out a bitter laugh. I didn't force them to forge my name. The ripples spread through the extended family. Cousins divided into camps. Some texted me messages of support. Others left curt voicemails about how I had shamed the Mercer's name. Uncle Jim cornered me at the grocery store one evening, his cart full of discount canned goods. His eyes burned. You didn't have to drag them into court, Sloane. Blood is thicker than water. I met his glare. So is ink on a forged contract. He sputtered but said nothing more. The fallout was worst for Chloe. With the Hendersons pulling out, the vendors followed. The florist demanded final payment. The photographer refused refunds. Magnolia Estates sued my parents for breach of contract once the court proved the forgery. The bills stacked higher than the 3-tier cake Chloe had once posed beside. One afternoon, a video surfaced online. Chloe outside a bridal boutique, screaming into her phone, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Someone captioned it, "From fairy tale bride to meltdown in a month." It went viral within hours. I watched it once, then closed the app. For years, I would have rushed to comfort her, to clean up the mess. But this time, I felt nothing but weary detachment. Mom tried calling again, her voicemail trembling. Sloane, you've made your point. The family is suffering. Please, can't you undo some of this? You're strong enough to take it. Chloe isn't. I deleted the message without saving it. That night, Samantha stopped by with takeout. She set cartons of sesame noodles on my counter and raised an eyebrow. You look like someone who hasn't eaten all day. I shrugged. Watching your family implode isn't exactly an appetite booster. She handed me chopsticks. You didn't cause the implosion. You just stopped being the glue that held a cracked vase together. Her words sank deep. The Hendersons' reaction became the final nail in the coffin. At a church service, Ethan's father stood during prayer requests and announced, voice solemn, "We are grateful our son was spared from a dishonest union." Within hours, screenshots of the announcement spread online. Chloe's humiliation was complete. She tried one last desperate move, a long Facebook post painting herself as the victim of a vindictive sister. She wrote about my loneliness, my resentment, my cold heart, but the comment section turned on her. We saw the court documents. Your sister protected herself. That's not cruelty. It's survival. Stop blaming her for your mess. Her words drowned in a sea of condemnation. Meanwhile, my parents' decline was swift. Their carefully curated image, Dad the respected businessman, Mom the gracious hostess, crumbled. Neighbors whispered. Church members stopped inviting them to luncheons. The Mercer reputation they had sacrificed me for evaporated overnight. Jordan called with updates about the financial restitution. They've got 30 days to pay the first installment, he said. If they default, collections get involved. They may have to liquidate assets. You mean sell the house? I said flatly. He didn't argue. One evening, I drove past my childhood home. A for sale sign leaned in the front yard, the paint peeling, the grass overgrown. Through the living room window, I could see Mom sitting alone, head in her hands. For a flicker of a moment, pity stirred. But then I remembered her voice in that email. She'll give in. She always does. Not anymore. The wedding date arrived like a ghost. Instead of champagne toasts and first dances, Chloe sat in a motel off the interstate, crying live on Instagram. My phone buzzed with notifications as people tagged me, asking if I'd seen. I didn't click. Instead, I sat on my balcony with Hazel curled in the sun, sipping coffee and watching the sky turn gold. Peace felt strange, fragile, but real. The fallout wasn't just theirs. It rippled through me, too. Relatives I'd once trusted unfriended me online. Old friends messaged awkwardly, unsure which version of the story to believe. But for every loss, there was a gain. Strangers reached out to say, "Your story gave me courage to say no to my own family." A coworker slipped a note onto my desk. "You're braver than you think." For the first time, I realized my voice carried weight beyond my own survival. The Mercer family was fractured, maybe beyond repair. Chloe had lost her fiancé, her wedding, and her reputation. My parents faced debts they could no longer hide. The house that once loomed over me like a symbol of duty was reduced to a real estate listing. And me? I had lost the illusion that family always means loyalty, but in its place, I found something sharper, sturdier. Truth. Boundaries. Self-respect. That night, I journaled, the words spilling fast. They wanted me silent. They wanted me pliable. They wanted me broken. Instead, I chose myself, and though the fallout is brutal, I've never felt freer. I closed the notebook, blew out the candle, and let the quiet of my apartment wrap around me. The world outside buzzed with scandal, but for the first time, I didn't feel the need to fix it. The fire had consumed everything false. All that remained was mine. The Mercer name was still burning in Raleigh, but I was already gone. A week after the canceled wedding, I packed my last box into a rented U-Haul and drove south. Hazel sat in her carrier beside me, occasionally letting out a disapproving yowl, as if she couldn't believe I'd uprooted us again. 6 hours later, the skyline of Charleston rose ahead, soft against the late afternoon light. Pastel houses lined narrow streets, palmettos swayed, and the salt-sweet air smelled like a promise. I gripped the wheel tighter. This wasn't running away. It was choosing something new. My apartment was modest, nothing like the sprawling home I'd grown up in. Whitewashed walls, creaky wood floors, a balcony that overlooked the quiet hum of King Street. But when I slid open the glass door that first evening, the air carried no judgment, no demands, only possibility. I set Hazel free, and she immediately claimed the couch, curling into a ball like she already knew this was home. I sat on the floor among half-open boxes, breathing in the silence. For the first time in years, it felt like mine. Work at the design firm started fast. Marcus, the senior designer, tossed a stack of concept boards onto my desk the first Monday. "We need these finalized by Friday. Big client, deep pockets. Don't screw it up." In the past, I would have nodded meekly, stayed late, sacrificed sleep. But something in me had shifted. "I'll handle it," I said, sliding the boards neatly into a folder. "During business hours." His eyebrows shot up. "No weekend grind?" "No," I said evenly, almost surprising myself. "I value my personal time. You'll have excellent work on your desk Monday morning." He studied me, then smirked. "Fair enough." When he walked away, I realized my hands weren't trembling. Saying no had become muscle memory. Outside of work, I built a life brick by brick. Samantha visited from Raleigh one weekend, bringing a fiddle-leaf fig that now stood proudly by my balcony door. "Every new home deserves a living thing," she said, hugging me tight. Jordan sent a text the night my restitution payment landed. They paid the first installment. Don't look back. Build forward. And slowly, I did. Charleston offered me what Raleigh never had: space to breathe. I spent Saturday mornings wandering the farmer's market, letting the scent of roasted peanuts and fresh peaches fill my senses. I took evening walks along the Battery, where the harbor stretched wide and endless, reminding me there were more directions than the one I'd been pushed into for so long. At first, I felt like an imposter in my own freedom. I'd wake up panicked, expecting a call demanding money, expecting the weight of guilt to settle back on my shoulders. But the phone stayed quiet. Hazel purred. The world spun on. And with each quiet morning, I learned how to live without chains. One night, after a long day finalizing layouts, Tara, the junior designer, plopped into my office chair with a groan. "Client wants 3 more revisions. For free. I don't know what to do." I recognized the panic in her eyes, panic I'd lived in for years. "Your work has value," I told her gently, "and so do you. If they want more, you ask for compensation. Otherwise, you'll bleed yourself dry." She blinked, surprised. "You sound so sure." I smiled. "I wasn't, once, but I learned the hard way. Don't let anyone make you their resource at your expense." Her shoulders eased. "Thanks, Sloane." After she left, I sat for a long time, realizing I had just passed forward the lesson it had taken me nearly 3 decades to claim. By the 3rd month, my apartment no longer looked like a collection of boxes. My bookshelf stood tall, lined with design manuals and novels. The fig tree thrived. Hazel had discovered the sunny spot by the balcony, sprawled there every morning like royalty. One evening, I stood at the waterfront, the sun painting the harbor gold. I pulled a letter from my bag, a recent one from Mom. Her handwriting was shaky, her words tinged with something like regret. "We never meant for it to go this far." For a moment, I let the ache wash over me, but then I folded the letter back into my bag. Some bridges burn for a reason. I leaned on the railing, the sea breeze brushing my face, and whispered, "I choose me." And for the first time, it didn't feel like defiance. It felt like rebirth. Late afternoon sunlight stretched across Charleston Waterfront Park, turning the fountain spray into diamonds that shimmered in the air. Children laughed as they splashed barefoot in the water, couples strolled hand in hand, and the harbor breathed quietly against the pier. I walked slowly, Hazel tucked safely in her carrier bag, her head poking out curiously at the gulls circling overhead. It had been 3 months since the court verdict, 2 months since the Mercer house sold, 1 month since Chloe's engagement officially dissolved. My phone still lit up sometimes with messages, some from relatives begging for reconciliation, others spewing blame. I rarely answered anymore. Their voices no longer carried the power to rattle me. I found an empty bench near the pineapple fountain and sat down, the wood warm against my palms. The air smelled of salt and honeysuckle. For the first time, I wasn't bracing for a storm. A jogger paused nearby, glancing at Hazel. "Cute cat," he said with a smile. "Thanks," I replied, smiling back. Small exchanges like this reminded me how different life felt when it wasn't filtered through manipulation or guilt. I could simply exist, without owing anyone a piece of myself. I pulled a notebook from my bag, flipping past pages of sketches and design ideas to a blank sheet. The city's pastel homes and wrought iron balconies had been seeping into my work. Clients loved the new vibrancy. But tonight, I didn't sketch for clients. I sketched for me. The fountain, the harbor, the horizon. Freedom captured in pencil strokes. As the sun dipped lower, painting the water in gold, I realized I wasn't waiting anymore for apology, for approval, for validation. My life had shifted from defense to design, not just in my career, but in my soul. The water lapped gently against the pier pilings, as if whispering, "Keep going." I closed the notebook, cradled Hazel closer, and stood. The park lights flickered on, soft halos against the darkening sky. Around me, laughter, music, and life continued. And this time I felt part of it. Not drained, not trapped, but present. For the first time, the horizon didn't scare me. It invited me. Looking back now, I see the arc of it all so clearly. I spent years mistaking sacrifice for love, mistaking silence for loyalty, mistaking servitude for family. I told myself that giving endlessly made me strong. But strength isn't measured by how much weight you carry. It's measured by when you choose to put it down. I learned that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you build so you can walk freely without being shackled. I learned that sometimes the people who should protect you will be the first to exploit you, and that's not your failure, it's theirs. Most of all, I learned that self-worth is not selfishness. Protecting your future, your finances, your peace, that is love too. Family, I've discovered, is not defined by blood, but by respect, by choice, by who shows up for you without demanding pieces of your soul in return. So if you're listening and you've felt trapped in expectations you never agreed to, know this: you have the right to say no, you have the right to start over, and you have the right to choose yourself. If my story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more stories, share it with someone who needs courage, and drop a comment about your own journey.